Transfer negotiations are a complicated and demanding process. Each side is determined to win the best conditions for themselves, and should the negotiations drag on, a third party may emerge and eventually find success. Today's video is going to be about the most well-known cases of that kind, clubs snatching players from other clubs at the very last moment. But before we get into it, we'd like to test your football knowledge. Which one of these four players has the highest market value as per Transfermarkt? Anthony, Mikhailo Mudryk, Rafinha, Alexander Golovin. Feel free to leave your answers in the comments. And now, let's go. Rafinha and Jules Koundé, snatched from Chelsea by Barcelona. The Blues spent as much as €282 million in their first transfer window under their new owner Todd Boehly, and Rafinha from Leeds could have become one of their newcomers that summer. Thomas Tuchel, who was the Chelsea manager at that time, was eager to sign the Brazilian as he believed him to be the right player for his system. The board was about to complete the signing and pay Leeds about €70 million including bonuses. It may have looked like a done deal, but Rafinha stalled on his contract negotiations as he was still waiting for another offer from Barcelona. The Blaugrana were still in crisis, and it looked unlikely that Rafinha would ever put on a Barca shirt. But in the end, Barcelona somehow got the money and signed the Brazilian, thus snatching him from Chelsea. Another story of that kind happened to another Barca signing, Jules Koundé, who was also believed to be joining Chelsea. As said by the Sevilla sporting director Monchi, the clubs reached an agreement and the papers were about to be signed. But then the Chelsea delegation asked for a pause, and that was the last thing Sevilla heard from them. As for Koundé, he joined Barca instead for €50 million. Rumors say that the transfer was actually blocked by Thomas Tuchel, who wasn't sure about the signing. But as we all know, Tuchel was fired early in September, so now the board probably regrets not signing the Frenchman. After all, he would come in useful for Chelsea should we consider how injury-prone Reece James is. Mikhailo Mudryk, snatched from Arsenal by Chelsea. 6 months later, the Blues made up for the missed opportunities and managed to snatch a player from their rivals, Arsenal, who had been pursuing Mudryk since summer. The Gunners kept watching him for a while and in the end decided that it was time for action. The negotiations were extremely tough as neither side was willing to compromise. At the same time, Mudryk was hinting at his desire to move to the Emirates on his social media. So when the first rumors about Chelsea's intention to sign him appeared, the Arsenal fans didn't really pay attention to them. Not only they had the player's desire, but also a more promising project as well as the Premier League leadership, while Chelsea were going 10th in the league. But this overconfidence was the reason why Arsenal never got Mudryk. Chelsea made the most out of the situation and took the negotiations by storm, as it took them no less than a couple of hours. The Blues delegation, led by Behrdad Eghbali, one of the owners, headed to Poland, persuaded the player to join them, and wrapped up a €100 million deal, including bonuses. However, Shakhtar is going to get all of them only if Chelsea wins the Premier League or the Champions League in the next couple of years. David Silva, snatched from Lazio by Real Sociedad. The Manchester City captain David Silva made a decision to leave the club as a free agent before the 2019-20 season started. At once, there came rumors about Lazio following him. It all looked very optimistic for them, so there was hardly any doubt about the Spaniard joining the Italian side. But at the very last moment, Real Sociedad joined the party and offered a more lucrative contract to Silva, who was more willing to come back to Spain than to go to Rome, as it turned out. When the Lazio board found out about Silva's talks with another team, the sporting director Iliutare straight out said what was on his mind. "I've learned about David Silva's transfer to Real Sociedad. I have great respect for the player, but not for the man. As for now, David is still at Sociedad. He has already won the Copa del Rey with his new team. His contract, however, expires this summer, so the Basques should consider offering a new one to the veteran." Diego Forlan, snatched from Middlesbrough by Manchester United. In 2002, the young Uruguayan came to the UK to join a new club. This club was Middlesbrough, a mid-table Premier League side. The only things left were the medical examination and signing the contract. But suddenly, the player's agent got a phone call. Someone wanted to talk to Forlan. That was Sir Alex Ferguson, the Manchester United manager, who didn't really need to say much in order to persuade Diego to come to Manchester instead. The young striker had quite decent stats at his old club Independiente, 40 goals in 91 games, and that made United spend a decent sum of 11 million euros in order to sign him. Unfortunately though, Forlan's Man United spell wasn't the best one. Ruud van Nistelrooy was the undisputable number 9, while the Uruguayan had to leave to Spain eventually, and now we know that it was the right move for Diego. Gleison Bremer, snatched from Inter by Juventus. The Brazilian centre-back was named the best defender in Serie A, which made many big clubs throw money at his club Torino. Chelsea was rumored to be one of them, but when the Blues dropped the idea of signing Bremer, it became clear that he would stay in Italy. First, there was Inter. The negotiations lasted for long weeks, but the Nerazzurri's financial restrictions made it extremely hard for the sides to come to an agreement. Inter was too stingy, while Torino refused to cut the price. There were hopes that Inter would sell some players in order to get the money needed, but while they were trying to sort it out, Juventus got involved. Unlike their Milan rivals, the Bianconeri acted quickly, and soon it was all done. Bremer moved to Juventus for 41 million euros. Money wasn't a problem for Juve, as they had just received 67 million from Bayern for Matthias de Ligt. Willian, snatched from Tottenham by Chelsea. In summer 2013, Willian had to leave Anji Makachkala as the club's rich owners decided to cut down on expenses. Willian's next club was supposed to be Tottenham. The Brazilian came to London and was just about to undergo a medical examination and put his signature on the contract, but it was not meant to happen. Chelsea came on the day I was going to sign the contract with Spurs. I was at Tottenham training ground to finalize the deal when the call came. My agent said to me, "Chelsea just called me, and they want you." I said, "Okay, I want to go there." That's how Willian moved to Chelsea for 35.5 million euros, thus giving the Blues fans another reason to mock Tottenham, as they made up a chant about him. He hates Tottenham. Willian spent 7 years at Chelsea and later called that decision the best in his life, as he won 2 Premier League titles with the Blues, as well as the Europa League and a couple of domestic cups. In one of the recent games, Willian scored for Fulham against Chelsea and refused to celebrate the goal in order to pay respect to his old club. Luis Diaz, snatched from Tottenham by Liverpool. And now for a recent example of a player ditching Spurs. A year ago, Luis Diaz, the Porto winger, was firmly believed to be heading to Tottenham, as the new manager Antonio Conte was eager to have him in his squad. But when all the papers were reported to be signed, Liverpool came out of nowhere and brought the Colombian to Anfield for 47 million euros. Diaz was lured to Liverpool by an opportunity to work with Jurgen Klopp and of course playing in the Champions League. That's why he rejected Tottenham. 6 months at the new club were enough for Diaz to make a noticeable impact in various tournaments and also win 2 domestic cups. He scored 4 goals in the Premier League last season, and one of them was at Anfield against Spurs. That didn't help his side win though, and the game finished 1-1. Malcolm, snatched from Roma by Barcelona. In summer 2018, the Brazilian was at the Bordeaux airport heading to Rome for a medical, as his transfer to Rome had already been announced. Malcolm was sitting in a waiting room when he got a bewildering call from the Bordeaux board. Barcelona made an offer, a slightly better one, and snatched the winger from Roma. It's believed that one of the Roma board members was so furious when he heard the news that he kicked his table so hard that it broke. During the following days, it all went down to an improvised auction, and as a result, Roma quit and Malcolm moved to Barcelona for 41 million euros. He found no success there and had to leave the club shortly after he joined. However, Barca got lucky as Zenit St. Petersburg offered almost as much as the Blaugrana had spent on Malcolm, so Barcelona got to lose no more than €1 million. Cody Gakpo, snatched from Manchester United by Liverpool. The Dutchman could have ended up at Old Trafford, but Manchester United went for Antony instead and spent €95 million on him, so making another big signing in summer was not an option. Later in winter, Cristiano Ronaldo left the club and United were in need of a new striker, while Gakpo had a solid World Cup and scored 3 goals for the Netherlands, thus becoming their best goalscorer. His old club, PSV, was willing to let the player join United in January, but the negotiations were very tough and took a long time. And that was a chance for Liverpool. They got in touch with the Dutch club and then, unlike Manchester United, acted quickly. As a result, Gakpo moved to Anfield for €42 million, while the Red Devils were left with nothing. Instead of Gakpo, they had to settle with another Dutchman, Wout Weghorst, who's unlikely to stay at Old Trafford for long as he joined the club on loan until the end of this season. Cristiano Ronaldo, Fred and Alexis Sanchez, snatched from Manchester City by Manchester United. In summer 2021, the legendary CR7 decided it was time for a new challenge, so he left Juventus and had his eyes set on returning to England. That was not the best news for the United fans, as the 36-year-old Portuguese was about to join their arch-rivals, Man City. And when it was almost done, everything changed in a blink of an eye. Ronaldo got a call from his old coach, Sir Alex Ferguson, who straight out told him that he would never tolerate Cristiano playing for City. Ronaldo couldn't say no to that. He also took into consideration his possible lack of playing time under Guardiola, so as a result went for United instead, as his former club paid €17 million for the striker. At first it all looked brilliant, as the Portuguese scored a brace against Newcastle on his debut. But then it all went wrong for United, and the season ended up being a disaster. Even though Ronaldo scored 18 goals in the Premier League, he had to get his share of criticism as well. Last summer, he decided to change clubs again, but the club refused to let him go. We all know what happened next. The conflict with Ten Hag and that very scandalous interview that left Manchester United no other choice but to terminate Cristiano's contract. Apart from that story, there were 2 other footballers snatched from Manchester City by their red rivals. In winter 2018, Alexis Sanchez, one of the best Premier League attackers, made the decision to leave Arsenal 6 months before the end of his contract. As the Chilean was on good terms with Josep Guardiola, his former head coach at Barca, City was supposed to be his destination as it offered way better prospects for Sanchez. After all, winning silverware was one of the reasons he made the decision to leave Arsenal. The player was believed to sign for City anytime, but it all changed when Manchester United offered him a contract with a salary of €500,000 per week. Such money turned the head of Sanchez, so he moved to United for no compensation fee but Henrik Mkhitaryan, who moved to Arsenal in return. However, as Alexis said later, from the very moment he first came to the training ground, he wanted to leave the Red Devils. So it surely wasn't the best of transfers. Instead of a Premier League star, they got a totally unmotivated player. He was benched and left the club at the end of the following season. 6 months later, yet another player who was about to sign for City changed his mind and went for United instead. Fred was about to complete his move from Shakhtar Donetsk, but United offered $59 million to the club and a more lucrative contract to the Brazilian. So the choice was made, and Fred still remains a Manchester United player. The problem is, none of these players managed to find success at Old Trafford, while City have been doing more than fine without them, and their 4 Premier League titles in 5 years speak louder than words. Jorginho, snatched from Manchester City by Chelsea. The Brazilian Italian made a name for himself while playing for Maurizio Sarri's Napoli. Manchester City set their eyes on Jorginho after they failed to get Fred, but yet again, it wasn't meant to happen. The sides were on the verge of reaching an agreement, but the rumors of Maurizio Sarri becoming the new Chelsea manager appeared. Maurizio persuaded his player to follow him to London, and soon they both were announced by Chelsea. As for the money paid, the former Napoli midfielder cost Chelsea €57 million. Despite being close to the manager, Jorginho admitted that he also asked his mother's opinion, and she told him to choose Chelsea as she believed the Blues to be a great club. As for the citizens, this is what Josep Guardiola had to say on the matter. "We were close, but in the end Jorginho decided to stay with Sarri. I said before that I want players who want to come here. He didn't want that. We tried, we believed it was done, but at the last turn he decided on Chelsea. It's quite similar to Alexis Sanchez. Nothing to say, but good luck at Chelsea." It didn't take Man City long to sign the midfielder they needed. That was Rodri, who's been outstanding since then. So it looks like those missed chances were worth it in the end. Vinicius Jr. and Rodrigo, snatched from Barcelona by Real Madrid. The two Brazilian stars could have both signed for their club's bitter rivals, Barcelona. Speaking of Vinicius, in summer 2018 he had a choice to make: join Real Madrid or Barcelona. Many of those who knew him kept saying that the Flamengo winger was a long-time Blaugrana fan and couldn't hold his tears after that very iconic comeback against PSG in 2017. But when the time came, Vinicius decided to move to Real Madrid. Gerard Piqué, the former Barca captain, knew about that, and this is what he said. "I talked to Vinicius personally before he signed for Madrid. He told me that his signing for Barca was done. I was in contact with Vini to welcome him to the club and those types of things. He even confirmed that he was going to join, but Madrid arrived and doubled the offer." Vinicius, in his turn, sticks to another version. "Barcelona wanted to pay more, but we wanted the best project. Marcelo and Casemiro spoke to me and helped me decide. I think this is the right choice for me, and playing for Madrid will make me better." Rodrigo's story was pretty much the same. Vini's compatriot admitted that his father told him about the Barcelona interest one day. The offer from the Blaugrana was a lucrative one, but the player decided to stall on it and wait for Real Madrid to make their offer. And Real Madrid did come for Rodrigo and signed the 18-year-old Brazilian from Santos for €45 million. Vinicius, by the way, also cost Los Blancos €45 million, and the time has already shown that these were the right moves, as the two Brazilians' impact was essential to the club's La Liga and Champions League success last season. Ronaldinho, snatched from Manchester United by Barcelona. The Brazilian magician had his eyes set on a move to a bigger club as he wanted to leave PSG, not the strongest side back in the days. Ronaldinho was a number one priority for Manchester United. The negotiations were approaching their end, while the player did want to move to Manchester. It turned out, though, that it wasn't his ultimate decision, as soon he rejected Man United in favor of Barcelona. There are those who still don't understand why it all went wrong that summer. This is how Ronaldinho explained it. "It almost happened with United. It was a matter of 48 hours, but Sandro Rosell had told me way before I got the offer, 'If I become Barca president, will you come?' I said yes. It was only a matter of details with United when Rosell called to say he was going to win the elections there, and I had promised him that I'd play for Barca. It was a quick negotiation, so I told the English I had chosen Barca." However, the thing is that it wasn't Rosell who won the 2003 elections, it was Joan Laporta, so it wasn't really about him. However, that move was followed by 5 years at Camp Nou, which brought Ronaldinho 2 La Liga titles, the Champions League trophy, and the Ballon d'Or in 2005. Snatching players from other clubs is not the prime example of sportsmanship, but after all, it always feels good to end up winning a competition for a good player. But we shouldn't forget what it's all for. First of all, the player should fit his new team's style, and that's the most important thing. Dear friends, let us know in the comments which one of these signings you consider the worst. Thank you for watching, and see you soon.